I'm Bill Sanders, and this is WatchArtSci, the art and science of watch collecting. Today, what I want to talk about is the whole issue of complications. And just about every watch collector, I think, should have at least one watch with some complications. The basic watch that I'm wearing right now is sort of it's hard to see in the light, but this is a Patek Philippe Calatrava. It's got no complications. It has the hour and a minute, and that's it. It doesn't even have a second hand. On the other hand, some of the other watches that I have, and I'm sure that you have too, have at least one or more complications. And complications are defined anything beyond that. Some companies like Vacheron Constantin think that the minute, the hour, the second plus the date, that's basic, and anything beyond that's complications. So uh, that's roughly the area that we're dealing with. The the whole I guess you might call it search or the attempt to add more and more complications to a watch have been successful. At the Paris Expo in 1900, Leroy came along with a watch that had 24 complications. And from 1900 to 1989, it was the most complicated mechanical watch in the world. And then in 1989, Patek Philippe came along. They had 33 complications. And then a few years later, in 2015, Vacheron Constantin came along and they made a watch with, I think it was 57 complications. Anyhow, the most people don't really have a use for a mechanical watch with that many complications, and a lot of the complications we simply have on our mobile devices. If you have an iPhone or an Android, there are hundreds of complications. Okay, but for the mechanical, it's a real challenge, and I'd sort of like to look at that today. And to do that, I like to use this is my Audemars day date moon phase watch. And unlike my Patek Philippe, it's got several complications. One complications is the day of the week, another is the date of the month, and the other is the moon phase. Otherwise, it's a pretty up straight automatic watch. The AP reference on it is 25589, and it has not one but two caliber or two movements. One's a 2124, which is sort of the base movement, and then it has something called the 2825 caliber, which handles the day, date, and moon phase. So this is an interesting watch. The the functions that it performs, we'll take a closer look. It's hard to see uh, from this distance and the focus on my camera, but we'll see what each one does. We'll start with the day of the week, and it pretty much does the day of the week. It's located right here on the watch, and you can see it just goes through Sunday all the way back through the week, and then starts over on Sunday again. Okay, I like that feature. Some days I don't know the day of the week. Some days you're really busy, you don't want to think about stuff, and you boom, you pull up your watch and oh, it's Saturday. I thought it was Sunday, and so I don't have to worry about getting ready for work tomorrow or something like that. I was on a cruise last year, about a year ago, and the cruise line had the day of the week on the carpets in the elevator. See, nobody had to think. We didn't know what day of the week it was. You look at the floor in the elevator, they had it. Well, with a watch with that function on it, that complication, you could do it that way too. Okay, the next feature on this watch is the date. Okay, that's right here, and the date is a lot of different watches have dates on them. My favorite is a Rolex with a little bubble that magnifies it. That I like. It makes it a lot easier to see at a glance. On this one and some of the other ones I have, you have to really look at the thing. But anyway, that's another very handy thing to have. The perpetual calendar, what's called a perpetual calendar, you have to, I think you set it once a year, and it knows the months with 31 days, with 30 days, and the really good ones take into account leap year, whether February has 28 or 29 days. Anyhow, there are a lot of different kinds of complications. There are three main categories, I guess. First of all is timing, and this is pretty much what this one does with two of the functions, the day of the week and the date. Another one, another general group of elements are the astronomical. The astronomical are moon phases, moon tides, the celestial chart. This, of course, has the moon phase. Some companies, there's one company in Holland, in the Netherlands, called Christian van der Klaas. And they make the most incredible astronomical watches. They have the time, too. The time is sort of an afterthought, but the tides and different kinds of celestial displays. Okay, the final one is sound, and this would be like a chime or an alarm or something like that. I guess you could add to that. Sometimes there's this, they have what's called a carousel, a little carousel get going with the sounds of it. So there are all kinds of different kinds of complications that people want for doing different things. Now, what kind of complications are, I mean, in terms of functionality, you might want to think about? On a watch like this, the Audemars Piguet day-date moon phase it's a great watch to have, but maybe you don't need that. Maybe you need something like a chronograph with a timer. A lot of that can be very important if you're involved in sports and you want to time running, or if you're into the horse races and you want to time the running of the horses, something like that. Just there's several different kinds of things. One of the ones that I'm looking for now is a dual time or a GMT time. The GMT time, when I travel, if I cross everything from time zones to international date lines, I want to know what time it is. And the GMT is for, I've heard GMT stand for Greenwich Median Time or Greenwich Mean Time, depending on who's using it. The pilots call it Zulu time, and this is the time that it is. It's sort of a time, it's always the same. And you have to adjust by adding or subtracting hours. Certain watches, for example, the GMT Master 2 that is from Rolex, they have another hand that sort of is on an hour of another place, and so the clock times will be the same. Some places, if you're sending to places like India, for example, are half-hour difference, so that can throw things off considerably with those. And other kinds of things that you may want, depending on what you do. One thing that, let me suggest it, moon phase is, like I said, I don't know why I like a moon phase, but I do, phases of the moon. Maybe it's take my wife out on a date and get out of trouble sometime, who knows. The phase of the moon, though, is something that it'll help you understand what the phases of the moon are. If you have anything to do with tides or fishing or yachting, something like that, this may be a very practical use. But one of the things that you can do that's really cool, Jaeger-LeCoultre has this app that you can get for your mobile device. And if you go to Jaeger-LeCoultre, you download it, and it has all of these different watches with a moon phase, and they have a simulator of it that you can watch on your iPhone or your Android, whatever you happen to have. And I recommend it highly. I use it, and you can use it for setting your moon phase too. Of course, Jaeger-LeCoultre would prefer that you set it with one of their watches rather than an Audemars Piguet. Okay. Uh, Downside. One of the things about the more complications you have on a watch, the harder they are to service. There's no two ways about that. You got more gizmos in there that the watchmaker has to check and work with and make sure everything's working okay. That's to be expected. All of the watches, the high horology watches, you got to take care of them. Perhaps not as often as they would like, and sometimes they just charge outrageous amounts. My advice is find a watchmaker in your area that you know and trust who can work on these things. Excuse me. Anyhow, for complications, it's an interesting thing to see how they're done. Got to be careful. Don't want to end up having to try to keep too many of them working, because if one of them breaks down, this could upset the rest of them, and then getting it fixed can be a little expensive. But by and large, I think at least one complex watch is something I think every collector either should have or should want to have, just for a completion of it and enter into high horology. Some people consider a tourbillon to be a complication. I don't. I consider it to be just like a mainspring. It's a different type of engine, so to speak, for your engine. Complications have to do with things that are added onto your time, your basic time, minutes and seconds and hours. Okay. Love to hear from you if you've have a complication. I'd like to see one and say, hey, boy, I wish they had this mechanical complication. This would add to my watch, or they could do it. Let me know. With computer watches, we're not going to talk about them. They're fine. But your mobile device is exactly that, probably. But in mechanical things, it becomes a real interesting challenge, and I think something that collectors would be interested in. Okay, let's hear from you. Go ahead, subscribe if you like to. Love to have you. And this is Bill Sanders. This has been WatchArtSci. Until next time, adios.